Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 10:02, and we'll ask for adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Mr. Stevens?
I'll give you the motion to adopt the agenda as well.
Thanks, Justin. All in favor? That one's carried. Adoption of the minutes from the May 25th meeting. Mr. Clark moves. All in favor? Carried. Delegations, there will be none at this meeting today. We'll move on to reports from the ASB admin on page 1. Clinton?
So, roadside spray program, there's a map coming up, you'll see we are pretty close to being done south of Highway 12. We have 2 thirds of the township out at the Painter border left. The public works brushing locations, we have done our first round. So now we're going back and touching up again on those that were inspected that didn't need it at the time. Weed inspections are completed in all hamlets, starting crops in 3816, 38.916. Further to that, we've got all 2-digit highways done and all 3-digit highways done except for 855, 851, and 850. Dealing with a couple of full quarters. I'll keep you guys in the loop whether they get controlled or not, or if we have to come back for we'll have to do an RFP on destroying the full quarter.
Are there crops in those quarters, or is it just
No.
no?
Well, they were cropped until 2 years ago, and they've just come back with a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And he's been grazing them as such, thinking it was all grasses. 2 of the 3 quarters he has sprayed. 2 of the 3 quarters he has sprayed. 1 quarter he is going to hay it first and then spray. So I feel like he's going to do that quarter as well. So we'll see. But I need council permission to destroy over 20 acres of crop. Even though it's not crop, I'll still do that process to make sure it's done by the book. Weed inspections in subdivisions. Working with the current landowners on that one. White cockle's been crazy this year with the moisture. Been hand pulling quite a few roads on that. Anything in flower, white cockle, Seventh chamomile, common tansy, oxeye daisy. Those ones we have to hand pull anything in flower. Then we can go spray or mow to destroy the rest of the weed. Provincial audit, June 22 was done. Setting up the farm tour. Dealing with possible oversprays on canola southwest of Stettler. And investigating 2 other locations of overspray or spraying wrong vegetation. And receiving quite a few calls on dead trees or dying trees in yards, mostly in yards, but some shelter belts, and it's looking like it's follow through from last year's drought that the trees just didn't. Winter kind of took them over. Getting quite a few calls on fungus in crops, fruits on trees, all from the moisture. So we go from a dry year causing us issues to a wet year that's causing different issues.
When should we expect the final report from the audit?
Last time we went through this, it was like February when we got the final draft. But I should get an initial draft, kind of November, December, I'm hoping, and I can give you guys kind of some highlights that come out of that. But the last time they did it was February. I feel like Miss Jackson will be a little quicker on that report than Mr. McCauley was. She seems a little quicker on the computer reporting side of things, so we'll see. But that's what I'm expecting it. And then, yeah, just marking some scentless chamomile on the highways for Alberta Transportation. They'll send a crew out to control that. We did deal with about 1.5 meters of leafy spurge on Highway 56, just north of 39-3. And currently dealing with a GPS issue in one of my spray trucks. So looking at options to replace the CAM's GPS system, because it's given me some grief over the last few years.
Last one question back to Clinton, if I could, on our spraying, when we're spraying along the roadsides with, as far as trees go, I've noticed quite a few spots where we're getting trees that don't look like it's been trees that have been brushed in areas. I understand we can have a little bit of overspray on that, but it sure doesn't look very good on a year like this when you're going along and you're seeing fairly big trees that have been sprayed.
Yeah.
Is that from our just our weed roadside spraying, or are we purposely spraying those trees?
Yes to both, I guess, kind of. So the idea is to go after the small shrub in front, not the large tree. We have hit a few larger trees, so.
Larger trees that have been hit, they're brown, you can tell it was this year.
Yeah. So those that get brushed out.
They will get cut out eventually.
They will eventually, yeah. We have to wait for the Migratory Bird Act, right? Before we
doesn't look real nice driving down our scenic county roads and seeing that.
Yeah. So some of the pictures you see there, Tower Road, doing some of the roadside seeding.
Should be a good year for germination on the grass.
Well, from the time that picture is taken to even when we did our field audit, we toured that road and I had 75% of the grass seed already uptaking within a few weeks. But that first major rainstorm we hit, this was like hours before. We knew it was coming, we wanted to get it in and hopefully the rain would help drive it in. So we hit that one. The timing was pretty good on that. We're still hitting some spots we couldn't quite get to with our hydro seeder. But yeah, that road is looking great. Yeah, there's a picture of my small roadside truck. The water tank had a crack in it about halfway up. And we tried to do a fiberglass patch, but fiberglass and poly don't get along. And just the water didn't. The pressure of the water blew that out, but this is a picture of, there's a place in Bulf that does plastic welds. We've used them for years and then they kind of quit for a bit, but they started back up. So for $40, I got my tank fixed, which is better than $2,000 for a new tank. A little landscaping up at the lake. This is this is now known as Roshan Sands Heights, what used to be Buffalo View Estates.
That's right along the marina where the stairway is?
Correct. Yeah, this is on the east side. Yeah, so there used to be some wood mulch in there, which was the desire at the time. But such high winds, it was blowing the mulch around. And we took it out and put in some 2-inch rock instead. And then my Reeve signed a proclamation for Year of the Garden, so we cleaned up a couple existing gardens in Gadsby. Across from, what's the park called? Is it Campbell Park? Bignell Park. Across from the administration building.
So when was the Gadsby flower bed picture taken? What's that?
That picture you see there is just after planting, so that would have been kind of mid-June.
Okay, no, that answers my question, because I was thinking, was it just done really, really recently, and are they still that little? But,
Because we didn't have a June meeting, you're gonna see a lot of end of May, 1st of June pictures in this report.
okay, no, gotcha.
So this was,
Looks good.
I could go back and look, but yeah, it would have been about mid-June.
Okay.
We waited a solid week after May long to make sure frost was gone.
You can almost tell by the grass too, because right now it's very lush and green for almost August. So
It is, yeah.
So the next pictures, this is weedy quarter. So this is one of the 3 quarters, but because it's a public meeting, I won't tell you the legal land yet or the name of the person. You can ask me after. So some things we found are white cockle. We found absinthe wormwood. No yellow toadflax, but there were other yellow plants such as sweet clover. There was some gumweed. Absinthe wormwood now is, you'll find a slightly yellowing flower coming on it. Lamb's quarters. Quackgrass, which isn't really a noxious weed, but it's just not healthy for a pasture condition or hayland.
Mr. Gender had a question?
Quentin just answered right away there. Those are the pages at 14, 15, 16, whether that was the land that was under question that year.
Yeah, there's 3 quarters within 4 miles. There's 2 quarters across the road from each other, and then the next quarter would be
Well,
a mile and a half-ish north. All the same landowner, all rented to the same guy who quit renting as cropland. That he thought he would just graze it, thinking that'd be fine. So yeah, this is all scentless chamomile. Found some of that. It's all the same 3 quarters. You could literally take any one of these pictures and it would look like any one of those quarters.
well, something like that, how would, being that it was infected, like 3/4 of the same landowner, was it brought in by? I'm just kind of wondering like how it got infested by that, like, or like.
It may not have been brought in, but because of annual cropping, a lot of those weeds may have been just annually controlled or suppressed year to year. And because the annual farming, the crop farming was done, then they have a chance to just grow, right? Because he was letting it come back as pasture. So a lot of those, like scentless chamomile, there's 500,000 seeds on one plant, and they can sit dormant for 30 years. So you can get those annual plants coming up every year with your pre-harvest burn off or your pre-seed burn off, right? You can get that. But the second you stop that, give it a year for any kind of residues, and that stuff will take off and disturb plants. Same with white cockle.
So this land was continuously cropped then?
Yeah.
Until all of a sudden, when there's no competition, then the weeds hit, they're free for all.
Yeah. And when you get out, and I don't know, I have one picture on page 19 that you can, actually that's the picture, the top picture. You can kind of see the rows. If you went out and looked, you could still see some stubble from when it was cropped. I should have taken a better picture of that. But you can see where he was. You can still see the stubble from years past.
Mr. Clark?
just a question back to Quentin. Quentin, when is like Alberta gonna talk to our grass seed producers? Because some seed producers have up to 1% noxious weeds in the seed. And I know of 2 neighbors that have seeded alfalfa from one seed producer and haven't made 2 years and have had to work everything because of scentless chamomile. And to me, that should not be allowed. That should not ever happen, but it's happened numerous times. And I don't know why we would, as Alberta agriculture would ever allow them to sell that seed.
Yeah, that would be a provincial thing, because that's how even seed grading for the seed plant, in a kilogram of grain, you're allowed so many kernels of a weed seed, noxious, not prohibited noxious, but noxious weeds, right? So that's always been kind of a hot topic. The tough one with alfalfa, when it comes to scentless chamomile, is those seeds are pretty close to the same size. So to clean that out is going to be tough, but that would definitely be something that the province should look at. they're gonna have a fight in their hand because any one of those seed producers, they don't want that, right? Because then it's gonna hit their bottom line, their pocket,
Yeah, but it certainly hits producers that
their other pocket, yeah.
And it has come down, like, when you look at, say, our neighbors in Saskatchewan, the potash mines.
Yeah.
And their tolerance, when they're mining that potash for fertilizer, if they so much as see a single sunflower shell or seed anywhere on any equipment or vehicle, you're escorted off site and never allowed back. Like, they are so afraid of any contaminants coming in on the fertilizer stage where it's zero tolerance whatsoever. I don't think that's really trickled down to the seed producers, but it has shown that zero tolerance with the fertilizers.
If you remember back the big fight over fusarium, those that had fusarium really wanted that 2% allowance so they could have resistance built into their seed, and those counties that didn't have fusarium were really fighting for that zero tolerance. How much of a fight that was in the province. You could pretty well draw a line across Highway 1. That's where the line was. That fight we had for 15, 20 years before they said, okay, scrap it. We're no longer concerned with fusarium. So those producers that had fusarium in their fields, they won, right? They're now allowed to have fusarium, a certain amount. There's pros and cons to it. I mean, it allows them to have resistance for fusarium for future crops, but you now have what used to be a pest in your field, and it's okay.
That's like with these noxious weeds, and it turns it over to us, the landowners and us to fight, then.
Yeah. And so that you'd have that same fight, right? Okay, seed producers, it's 0% on any noxious weeds. Well, that guy that doesn't have any in his, he's laughing. He's now jacked his prices up 15% because he has a niche market. And, Mr. Stuhlberg that produces alfalfa, who has Septimus chamomile, he's now out. He has to burn it off and start over. And as a producer, that's what I want. When I buy seed, I want to buy from the guy that has zero. But
No, I was just gonna say, that's what happens.
I mean, when I buy grass seed for our roadside, for our haylands, that's what I go for. I don't buy from a store. I buy from a seed producer, and I get that germination test and I get that seed test, so I know that I'm putting in next to zero noxious weeds, because that's less for me to worry about next year, right? Page 22, so we were doing some driving around. We actually found some Dalmatian toadflax on 38-4. We don't have much. This is actually the second site I know of that has Dalmatian toadflax. Close cousin to yellow toadflax. There's one spot up at the four-way stop on 835. And then we've got this just east of the county shop that we found. So that's currently being controlled, picked and surveyed.
I'll just ask a question. On page 21, is that relating to that, the bottom picture with the concern that was happening over the last few years, and is it going ahead, being sprayed?
That one there is conversation via mail, because I don't have an email address or a phone number. So it is being addressed. It's a slow process because it's a new owner now. So until I can get some contact information, it's via mail.
So like the weeds right now, like the person to the left is a producer of an orchard producer. And so like he's one that has been very much concerned for a number of years. And he brought this attention to me many years ago. And I would just like to be able to see it kind of cleaned up, because he's getting a little ticked.
Well, and he should be working through me, because then it goes a little quicker instead of waiting to go through you to come to me, but it is, yeah, it's being worked with.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Same road, a little further down, we found a couple of scentless chamomile plants. Page 24, if you guys don't know what leafy spurge looks like, that is leafy spurge on Highway 56. Like I said, it's not very much, just a small patch right along the side of the asphalt.
Mr. Gender? Like page 23, you're saying 38.4, like that's when they did a lot of road rejuve in there.
The shoulder pulls, yeah.
So is that why the ditches, like they're having a hell of a time trying to come back with vegetation?
Because we haven't seeded it yet, because they keep working it again and reworking it again.
Okay,
So I'm patiently waiting to seed it.
okay, great, thank you.
I'm hoping for this fall. Because it's been better part of 2 years. I think 2 years of shoulder pulling and back sloping and ACO doing a bunch of their removal along the fence lines under their power line. There's been a lot of work on that road.
So they're driving an awful lot in the ditch also to replace poles?
Yeah, and well, not even replacing poles, but they were doing brush removal around their power lines. So they were driving in the ditch disturbing some soil, but they were also,
Okay,
you can see where the brush that they removed was, right? There's piles of mulch, there's bare ground. So Public Works has been back sloping, shoulder pulling, ACO's been doing their stuff.
then you come in again.
And then I'll come in and, we did some seeding last year and then they did some more disturbing, so.
Thank you.
Denelda Parade, July 1. Page 26 is not Denelda, that would be Indian Parade, that was,
Weimar,
sorry, Weimar Parade, which was,
last August.
that's right.
Also, that isn't for.
No, that's this year,
So who's the
Weimar.
That must be Denelda then.
Weimar hasn't had the parade yet.
Unless you were down, one show.
Weimar is the 19th of August.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going there next.
So this has to be
This is Denelda.
a file one. Weimar.
So
And
the first one was, not the last. Who's the whoop up girl?
that is Brooklyn Chapman. And then there was a request on the repair request to remove some vegetation for a road sign. You just see it before the picture. How much we removed and what it looks like after. You can actually see a sign now. I got a couple of pictures of 273. This is the smaller of the two roadside trucks. This is the one that's slated for replacement next year. Following along, watching him do his thing. Some more white cockle and some canola and some peas. And page 34 is this is how we spray brush after Public Works. We'll brush a site, we handgun it. This is what we look like when we do it. Blue Martians. I forgot to get a picture of the actual truck, but there's the operator. That's a slow process because you get out, you fire up, you go spray the brush, you reel up your hose, take your spray suit off, drive to the next site, back out, dress up. But you can get up where the trucks can't hit and you can get a good control on that small stuff. That is my report.
Okay, any further questions for the report? If not, I'll ask for a mover to accept it. Go with Mr. McKay. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.1, resolutions for regional ASB conference.
So just as a reminder, November 2 is our regional conference in Lacombe County. So just looking to see if there's any kind of flavor on what we want to do. I know we talked about the education portion of chemical jug cleanup through Clean Farms, that rollout process.
There was one other one we talked about, and that was the gravel pit reclamation certs. And I don't know what the flavor of the board is, but I'm not sure if we want to go with two. It might be easier.
Would that be through Ag Services or would that be through RMA?
You really could go both avenues.
Yeah,
Actually, you could do both avenues with both of those. Oh man, his name just left. L. Kelmer with Mountain View County. He was a big lead on that Clean Farms and getting things turned around, and I know that went through RMA pretty hard. So really, you pick which avenue for either one of those topics. You could go either way.
And when we had our ASB Fieldman and chairpersons meeting in Lacombe, they had a roundtable discussion from issues counties were facing, and I raised the gravel pit reclamation issue. And it was Mountain View County offered to jointly work with us on that resolution because they're having similar issues too. And I think Painters would second it. So we already got some offers of support on it, and I don't think it'd be a bad idea to
Sorry, just for clarification, for which one?
the gravel pit. So on that, the people at Mountain View in their ag department.
where will we get the best traction? That's just on both, you think, Les, or?
I think it's a good idea it shows how concerned or how serious the issue is when it comes from ASB and from the counties as well. So keeps it in the forefront.
So I can kind of start working on something. We need to try and pick like a point that we're after. Are we talking about the timeline of the process on the provincial side? Or do you want to talk about allowing third party to be able to sign off on gravel pits to go a different route, kind of like what oil and gas does? They can have someone else sign off and certify an area. Like what? Because I know those are both kind of a topic for us that we can. I feel like we should pick one because the whole strychnine thing with Flagstaff and picking one thing to go on.
So. Jared, you might as well
The beer's cold.
start. Okay, we will resume our meeting after the fire drill, and we were discussing upcoming resolutions to take to the annual meeting, and on discussion, we were talking about gravel pit reclamation. I have a comment, and Mr. Gender, I think, indicated he had something to add.
I would say it'd be good on both, because like with council, there's council members, but on ASB, there's also different members. So it'd be nice to be able to be exposed to more people, the better off. So I'd like to spell the seed on both.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one as well. And so I guess, did you need it? Oh, yeah, I think too, maybe the third party piece is what we should be going for, because that'll automatically address the timelines if you can pull them in. Or I guess maybe we'll ask Yvette on her opinion on that one too, or in one resolution, could you include both timelines and this is a suggestion to speed timelines as a third party?
Hire more staff.
Yeah.
One inspector in the north and one in the south doesn't seem to be.
I mean, I would, if it's one topic, I would keep it all together.
Okay, that's my question on that. And Mr. Stevens?
My thoughts are, if we're gonna pick and choose one avenue, I mean, the third party likely has a higher chance of being successful, because it doesn't cost our provincial government anymore. However, you're going down that road of accepting this downloaded cost and responsibility for us to book them, pay for them. So it's a higher chance of success, but I'm not sure if I like opening the door to download responsibilities.
I don't know what it would cost. I have no idea what it would cost to have someone come in and do the inspection side of an application, right?
It was very acceptable to oil companies, and to have if we had oil leases sitting on books that were fully reclaimed, the same as what our gravel pits are now. And when I say oil leases, that could be batteries, that could be compressor sites. The cost was just phenomenal. You look at some of the pits that we've been waiting how many years for a reclamation, even what a rental is, let alone having to go back and fix things. I think it would be well spent, but I also think it's one and the same, because they're going to tell us they're not going to hire more staff, so we have to have a solution, I think.
Mr. Jenner?
I'm very much in agreement, because I believe the one pit that we're talking about is $2,500 a year. It's been going on for 10 years plus. So like I look at that and I would have to say, yes, I totally agree with Larry that by all means, I don't mind footing the bill for it to get it off the books.
Does that give you enough information on that one, that resolution? Okay, and then I was just gonna add, because at the meeting we had in Macomb, there was a discussion on submitting of resolutions, and there's gonna be suggestions for a few changes, like they're wanting obviously better resolutions drawn up, and the background information should be more limited. They don't want the resolutions to be pages and pages and pages long, and some resolutions come in so many whereas points. They don't think that's necessary to have a whole page of whereas points either. And of course, the regional directors are going to be directed to eliminate duplication of resolutions. So that's why it's good that we're already working with Mountain View on this one, so that we don't come forward with two resolutions on the same topic. But those are just points on that drawing of resolutions. Mr. Clark.
Just on that also too, RMA was very similar. The only thing is once they're submitted to your resolution review committee, like that's something you have to almost put a resolution out to make sure the resolutions are written right, because when it comes in, we couldn't rewrite it. We could suggest, and we've had some that were, it just goes on and on and on. You lose what the whole point is by the time you go through it. So however we can do it here would probably work good for RMA too, because everybody wants to tell too much of the story. That material is available after, if people want to look into it, but I mean, it really dilutes your whole resolution.
Yeah, so you got to cut to the chase.
Yes.
Get your point across.
Theoretically, you don't want more than 6 whereases, because then you lose so much. It becomes such a long document.
So, okay, then I think we've discussed that one fully, and then the other one was the education piece on recycling of chemical containers.
Did you discuss that at the,
That one's.
at your group meeting?
That one-
What other areas were thinking about that?
I can't remember my notes there. I don't think that one came into the topics, really.
Can you or Quentin take that forward to the next meeting you have? Because the other areas gotta have the same issues as what we're having on it.
That's right, yeah. I mean, although, I think that there was a little bit of discussion, but they did feel too that the new system was slightly flawed with having producers having to take their jugs back to multiple places where they purchased them, and those places, especially in urban centers, not really being equipped for a recycling spot. So it's not a perfect system either with the new. But I know it was the request of municipalities to have a change because we were saddled with the cost, but maybe a better option would have been if the municipalities did the recycling and were compensated for it. Might have been a better option, but. Did you have anything to add to that one, Clinton?
No.
Because we are where we are now, and I'm not sure.
It's tough. I just worry we're gonna get them left on the sides of fields again, and why this whole program was brought in originally. I think we could get back to that same scenario.
Mr. Stevens?
Ernie's open to it. Perhaps we should bring this up at the next step of ways. And we can approach our local ag vendors and see if they're willing, rather than accepting all these, if they're willing to compensate step of ways to continue doing what we've been doing. If it's been working and we can offset the cost, maybe that's the easiest way to go about this. We,
He's on that grid,
Can I ask you to reroute where you're going to compensate the money? County of Stat or Ag Services is the one that does the work. Yes, we use Stetler waste transfer sites.
to collect.
All they do is watch the jugs come in.
Fair enough.
I don't know what Curtis construction costs.
Yeah.
That will obviously be put on somebody because Clean Farms paid them to come do it. That's gonna stop when they switch this process up. But
So you're suggesting it's more a county issue than a waste management?
Yeah, Yvette?
I don't think that Settler Waste has received any income from Plain Farms. I think one of the biggest problems with a new format is that it all has to be bagged, right? So of course, we suit up our staff, usually summer staff, they go out, they collect all the containers from the transfer sites. And then we bring them in, do we haul them to a facility or they come and get them? I think they come and get them, right?
they come and get them.
But now you have to, have them all bagged and stuff, so that, it's labor intensive. So, and of course, every time if you gotta suit up and put on gloves and masks, make sure that there's no,
Could the sites have the bags set up and open and the producers just put them in the bags themselves?
It's a large garbage bag, which the landfill has they have rolls of bags ready for you to come take one. I have rolls of bags.
Oh, there's probably
You get home, you're supposed to fill the bag, bring the bag full.
like that, okay.
how is that, where has that been?
A long bag that's whatever, 6 feet in diameter. They're big bags.
Okay.
Where has that ever been brought? I've never heard that till today.
That's been advertised, it's on their poster. Clean Farms had all that stuff come out. They did the advertising for us.
No, but nobody, I have not heard it from a person I bought spray from. I have not heard it from sitting through how many years of ag services meetings, like some of this stuff, if that's the case and it makes it easier, that's what we have to do, but does your staff have to inspect the jugs anyhow?
It's a new process, right? So Clean Farms has advertised this with this whole switch. They're no longer gonna chip at the landfill. They're gonna take these bags and compress them somewhere. So they take the big bags away to wherever and compress them instead of chip them. Clean Farms has advertised all of that. I don't know how we're supposed to ensure that you triple rinsed and took labels off and lids off the jugs when now they're in a big bag. I don't know that part yet. That's brand new to us. Have to open the bags up and check them all and rebag them. That's gonna be great.
If that is the new rules that's coming out, we better get it publicized and even at our landfills have that posted. If that's where they're taking them to, gotta you just take them and throw them over the fence. That's what we did forever.
Gender. I find that it is so inefficient, like you look at this damn jug, like the volume that it takes, and they bag them. The weight that you're hauling in, so why are they hauling them off somewhere else to crush them up? Why not, okay, like with waste management, we're looking at doing styrofoam, bringing a compactor in, right on site.
That's not acceptable.
One thing, aren't the larger farmers going to cubes of chemical rather than jugs?
Yeah, for sure. The usage on small 20-liter, 40-liter jugs is
Way down.
definitely 20, 40, 10 and 20-liter jugs is definitely reduced, for sure.
But they're still.
They're still out there.
From a smaller producer, the jugs are a lot handier. I bought one of those barrels this year and what, that paint and the.
But even some of the bigger guys, when they first set up, they set up with the spikes for these small 10 and 20-liter jugs, right? Yeah, they can go by totes, but they got to set their system up different to suck in and transfer, right?
Yeah.
We're still doing, I forget the number, 17 or 20,000 pounds of plastic every year, from what Renee tells me, right? So we're still a lot.
1,000 pounds?
We're not a small, remember they had that chart come out that all the small guys would be done in 22, medium. We're medium to large.
So we're around for a while.
We're around until the
24?
end of 24,
Four?
the end of 24.
But it might not hurt to have a conversation with the retail chemical people in this community and see where they're at with it. If they would be looking to the an option of paying the county to be responsible if we choose, I guess we'd have to know if we want to do that, but because it does seem kind of like duplication of services if every chemical company in town is trying to recycle. Mr. Gender.
I just kind of wonder if a person could set something up like our cap levy. If they throw another buck or two onto the container, then like waste manager or someone else takes a hold of it. At least there'd be a management fee in there.
Yeah. There's an option, Mr. Clark.
Well, just an issue with that is if it was all suppliers that are independent to this area, that would be a great option, I think. But when you start getting these companies that have multiple stores, I don't know how you would be credited back and how they would do that through their system.
Yeah, I suppose.
But it's a good idea, but I just don't, the administration end could be like the cap levy.
And then even like the county side, we have certain herbicides we can't buy locally that I'm buying from Viserys in Lloydminster, Edmonton, or Bandage VM out of Sherwood Park.
Are you gonna run those containers up there? Not like it. Okay, well. we got some time to work on this, I guess, too, so we don't have to solve it all today, but we got a good start of some direction, and I guess Clinton can start
The
it.
bagging piece, I do think we should get some information out to our producers from us. Because a lot of them probably haven't read Clean Farms, to be honest. If you listen to Clean Farms and hear twine, and then you go to take twine to a transfer site and find out what they expect for twine, you haul it home to throw in a burning valve.
Well, I know that Clean Farms has communicated like to UFA and Co-op, because it was Co-op that jumped me when I was up there. And that's their biggest concern, right? Is the, number one, they don't want to take it because their hours aren't as good as ours, because we're open like 7 days a week. And the labor intensity of having to triple rinse the bag and ensure that's all done, plus the safety protocols to ensure that your employees are safe. Right? So, yes, it's the labor intensity of it.
Mr. Stevens?
I guess my question to Councillor Clark is, what would we prefer to advertise? That we bag it and take it to our facilities, or that we advertise that we're going to bag it and take it to the vendors? And I guess that's where I think we need to make a decision.
If we supply the bag, I would expect there'd be a minimum per bag. I don't know. Like, does a person put one jug in the bag and tie it up if that's all they use? Like, they don't with that size of bag. So we should be telling them how many triple rinsed, labels removed, lids removed, bagged, and then it would have to come up from us. That I still would suggest to go to our landfills till we get that system working, and then, or not landfills, but to transfer sites. Yeah.
So what kind of problems do you run into when your people collect them out of the transfer sites? Are the lids removed? Are the labels on? Not usually. So they have,
Probably
5% are not removed. You know, and so we haul chemical jugs to the landfill on rainy days or windy days when we're not spraying. The transfer site chemical collection sites are designed in a way to hold runoff. So they're clay and they're dish bound. They're walking through a pool of smegma to collect the jugs, right? I mean, we've gained some efficiencies on the ways where some of our transfer sites allow us. We use a backhoe and a gravel truck, scoop the jugs, load a gravel truck, haul it up and dump it versus hand bombing onto a trailer. But some of the sites like Erskine, it's a 4-foot man gate that you walk into and toss into. Like it, you're working in some pretty muddy, mucky situations that, yeah, the jugs aren't. People don't care. I'm not going to spend time taking a label off. Got it in the jug, get rid of it, and away I go. Right?
If I'd known I was supposed to take my labels off, I would.
It's been for 40 years.
You look at you take your jugs out and look at the rest of them that are in that site. They all got their labels on. So when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So that should be a sign right on it too. And when they're manned all the time, we should be talking to Stellar Waste. And if somebody's starting to throw them off with labels and lids on, they should be saying, stop and take those off.
Well, that's indicative of how this got started. That's the education piece that was missing. That's how this entire conversation got started.
Mr. Gender?
Could a person bring in and say, okay, look at these tree shredders. Why not bring in a shredder?
Well, that's what Curtis Construction has. They used to shred them, used to chip them into big, like long burlap sacks, and then haul them back to wherever, like Saskatoon, to melt down and make new plastics.
But why not have it so that they can be mobile to do it right here instead of shipping all this bulk? There's nothing to the load with that.
That's what Clean Farms has chose, because that's what Curtis Construction did, was they brought their mobile in. They would come, they would chip out of the landfill here, and then they'd head off to Coronation and chip there, then they go south to Oyen and chip, and down, like, they made routes, and that's what they did all year. Even into the winter.
So you're chipping at the Stellar.
So we would haul from from Gadsby, Bymore, Indian, Big Valley, Erskine, Stetler, up to the landfill, and Curtis Construction would come there and chip, and then head off to the next place and chip.
There's no further discussion on this. Just work on it and get back to it in a future meeting. So then 6.2 is the Agricultural Pests Act on page 35.
Well, one of the points that was brought up in the audit, and it's a minor one, but I'm glad Yvette's here for this because we got to get into the organizational meeting. Our appeal board for Agricultural Pest Act needs to have start and expiry dates. So when you guys appoint John Smith as an appeal board member for 2023, it's effective whatever Monday is, January 2 of 2023 until December 30 of 2023. It has to be, they have to have a set time. That one's the only one that needs times for some reason. So if we could, I'll put it on if you guys approve this, we'll put it on the next council package to appoint those that were put in the appeal board for Ag Pest Act. We'll make them effective January 3 of 22 to December 30 of 22. And then we just have to remember, we'll put it in the next organizational meeting for that committee. This is your term that you're the appeal board for. And it can't be, you can't say multiple years. It has to be in each year. It's a defined time in each year.
I thought they were appointed on term.
They're appointed, but it just says that they're appointed
We didn't,
for this year.
in the motion didn't say from this date to this date, so we just have to change the
No,
motion.
until a fiscal year, right, like a year.
So basically, it's just a new motion that these, whatever it was, 4 people are the appeal board from this date to this date, giving a start and end time.
Nikki?
Would we do that annually then at the org meeting?
Correct.
And so, but we have to correct it for this year?
Correct.
So at the next council meeting, Michelle, if you could make a note of that and then make a note of it for the org meeting.
Mr. Clark?
Also stated there though too is that they're knowledgeable in agriculture. I would assume that they should be, but how do you say that they're knowledgeable in agriculture?
That's what I tried to get out of her, and she's like, you guys just have to know.
But
Easy criteria, right?
the motion reads, that the county settler appoint Blake Chapman, Joe Gender, and 2 vacant positions as members to the Weed Control Act Appeal Board
Yeah.
for the term ending October 2022.
But that's the weed control. We need the agricultural pest one. And that one gives an ending time. The egg pest one needs a start time as well. So in the October meeting for October of 22, you're going to appoint people for 23, right? So then you would say as of January, whatever the first business day would be. Yeah, I know it's getting nitty gritty, but that was one thing she
Yeah.
pointed out quite quickly.
So,
This one needs a start and end time.
okay.
Which is funny because a lot of notices that fall through the Ag Pest Act aren't for a specific year. They're for a longer term club root, right? Rats, skunk with rabies. They're a longer term than just January to December, but that appeal board has to be specific.
Okay. So do you need a motion to send this to council with the adjustment of term?
If you guys would approve this request, I will take care of, administration will take care of getting it on.
Oh, okay. Mr.
I have
Clark?
a question, but then I give you the approval, or the motion to approve, but the question I have though is the way that just read, we have 2 out of 4. Do we even have, did we appoint 2 more?
I believe it was in the March.
We appointed.
I believe it was in the March meeting, there was 2 more people, and for the life of me, I can't think.
We're a short one, we have 3.
So we still could run that as a board though.
Correct, yeah, 3 would suffice, but they all have to
Okay,
approve.
so I just wanted to confirm
The meeting.
that we actually had a board that we could run for.
Yeah,
So I would move that forward, that it's,
we found it because I saw the same thing, but it was either your March or April council meeting you appointed maybe Harry Brook, right?
okay, no,
And then Sheree needs was
For the,
I didn't want to be on egg, but
well, she was on the
the other one.
municipal commission. For the
planning appeal board or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
Mr. Clark has put a motion forward to send the Egg Pest Act to council to get the term, the time limit terms into that.
And we'll just make sure we put in the notes for the organizational meeting that
Continue on into order
that's part of the motion.
to be done at the org meeting. Okay. All in favor of that motion? And that one's carried. New business, 7.1, the Animal Health Act policy, page 36.
Okay, so this one. So this one
There's
is
another one that came out of the audit or the field visit. We just need something that drives a little direction, and so far it's pretty vague. It hits some points they want, but it gets me in the good books as far as having a Animal Health Act policy. We can, by all means, tweak this going forward. But what this does is gives me a little bit of allowance to work with SPCA, the provincial chief veterinarian for the province, CFIA, local fire department and RCMP in motor vehicle accidents that involve livestock that need horse trailer rules, need a horse put down. An RCMP officer can allow or ask me to come do it. A lot less paperwork.
So on this one, we need the ASB to send the recommendation to council for that. Okay. Any questions on this? So I'm going to,
I do have a question. We talked about SPCA in the past and how it kind of put a poor light on county to them. Is that has to be one of our duties, or?
It is, as per the ASB Act, we fall, the ASB Act is an umbrella act that has the Alberta Animal Health Act in it. So by default, I'm there anyways.
Okay.
A lot of the time, unless they spot me, they have no idea I was even there. I do it very much under the radar, more so than a weed inspection, because it can be
Ugly.
confrontational, ugly.
Yvette and Ernie.
So,
My concern is, if we have a trailer rollover and we have a lot of guys going through this area with horses, get some pretty expensive horses on these trailers.
The landowner, by all means, will be giving approval.
Yeah,
A
so,
lot of the times they have nothing with them, right?
yeah, so what bothers me though, all of a sudden, we're pulled over to the side of the road, we shoot a $60,000 horse. And somebody in their ultimate wisdom who's upset figures we could maybe save that horse. Are we gonna get sued?
Not the way they'll be setting it up. You have a wreck with a $60,000 horse, I'm there to put it down. Please sign this.
okay,
Because I think we have to be really careful that we cover our butts because, people get pretty attached to their horses.
It's always by direction, whether it's a vet, RCMP, or the owner. Shouldn't say a vet, a veterinarian, RCMP, or the owner. Someone will be telling me this one needs to get put down.
yeah. okay.
I will not make that decision.
And I am concerned about that because,
Sometimes you have a wreck where the driver, or maybe it's Oldie Mill, hauling hogs, they don't actually own it, but Oldie Mill and Red Deer would, or wherever they're coming from, depending on what the manifest says. They can by the phone say, okay, who's on scene, commanding officer, okay, that's who. We've done it on our fire department before.
so what if you have a trailer rollover and you have, say the guy driving the trailer is unconscious or hurt or killed, so where do you get your permission to put this?
Coming from the commanding officer of RCMP or the veterinarian.
I just don't want to come back.
Why would the vet come down?
Lots of times they'll come from their house and have nothing with them.
Yeah,
We've had them lots, they'll show up, they got a handful of syringes, but they don't have a bolt gun or anything.
We had, a
That's in the work truck back at the office and I came straight here.
yeah, like we had a bullhead on the highway one time and they called us and we went and put it down. Like we went to the scene and put it down.
Mr. McKay? Actually, Yvette just asked the question I wanted to about what happens if the landlord's on the way to hospital or unconscious, passed away, whatever it
It
is.
goes to somebody else in the commanding authority.
That's my question.
So we'll have staff
It's
to-
enough, I will not make the decision to put it down. Somebody will be telling me, put this one down.
Okay, any further questions? Not, I guess we need,
Keep in
recommend.
mind, that's not gonna happen very often. We're talking more the CFA outbreaks, the disease outbreaks, the pet with swine, avian flu we just had, right? Those sorts of things are more regular. The 40 head of heifers that you can count ribs, where I'm making a call to someone else to come take care of, that's the normal stuff. The putting an animal down is once every couple of years.
Okay.
Didn't mean to jump in, I just want a lot of worried faces. It's not, that's in there as a default, but it's the pest outbreak stuff, the notifications, the helping on scene. Okay, we got 400 head of buffalo, we gotta bury. I can make a call to have an area opened up and we haul and we burn. That type of stuff. It used to be easy where they could just come out and do an appointment, and now they want a policy to back it.
Because we don't have that particular policy at this point, so, yeah, policy has to be developed. But from this board, it would have to be recommended to council to develop this policy. Would someone care to make that motion? Mr. McKay?
I will do so.
Okay, as staff recommendation, all in favor? Carried.
I'm not in favor.
Oh, sorry, I guess, I'm sorry, opposed? You got it. Mr. Clark's opposed, yeah.
Yes, I just think it's a push down that we shouldn't be taking on.
And then 7.2, herbicide crop damage, raised by Mr. Jenner.
These are a series of different pictures from about 3 different spots that I've had concerned residents phone up and say, okay, like what's really happening on them. Some of them, I don't know what has happened really in them. Like there has been vegetation that has been destroyed. And the part that concerns a person is say like that there could be an infestation, say like of other weeds coming into here. But we're also concerned, okay, so what type of weeds were really sprayed there? That I do not know, and I just want to have a little bit of input in. I only visited one spot where, okay, that picture right there, that where this farmer has moved his fence inside of the fence line. And you can see right where the difference, probably only about 3 or 4 feet from the inside fence, that it has been sprayed. And in this area here, all there was, the person has actively hayed the ditch every year. He has contoured the ditch so that everything works in through, so he's taken care of any weeds that would have been in there. So like this part in here, all there was alfalfa in there, and it had been destroyed. So like these are concerns that ratepayers have sent to me, okay, what is really happening?
Mr. Clark?
Question back to Mr. Gender. Your next response was to get a hold of Ag Services to come out and look at it. Like, they're the ones that should be dealing with this stuff.
Yeah, like it was one that these concerns were brought to me, so like I have talked to Quentin about it and shown like where the areas were. And Quentin, as far as I know, has gone down and had a look at these.
Not this one, the one where the fence was pushed back, I never got to that one.
I sent the location in towards you for it.
Are these all the same landowner?
No, there's one actually, it's on just south of Highway 12, half a mile west of us, about 3 miles south. This is where this one here is.
Okay.
The other ones are down in Bymore, Indiang area.
Mr. Stevens?
To back up, a couple that kind of had me concerned was it was a fairly steep slope where the spray had killed. I'm just wondering, was that us spraying or was that landowner spraying? Because when we get a broad kill on everything like that on a slope, I'm a little concerned about how long we leave that before we have erosion issues when we're dealing with some of those steeper grades.
And we, like, to kill everything like that, you'd have to be spraying a Roundup or something. Like, you typically don't spray that in your ditches unless
Never spray.
Unless it be-
Never spray glyphosate in our ditches.
it kills everything, so. Like, what would have been sprayed there,
A heavy
Dose
dose.
of something.
but not probably from our trucks?
Us.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you to that one?
some of, still trying to bring up the landowners' names. He gave me 3 names. Mr. Ginger gave me 3 names, and I contacted 2 of them. And some of them are spraying from brush that was obviously applied heavy. And others were our weed herbicide, but we may have had an off calibration. With some of those sites, I was down with Mr. Stuhlberg just over a week ago.
Yeah.
And there's some burn marks like this, but there's also spots where the grasses are coming back. Sometimes it'll do that. There's a chance that we have over applied a herbicide. But I don't know that. We do a calibration check on our pumps every Friday. But all that does is tell me that what's coming out is what's measured and what's measured on the screen. If they put in too much herbicide in the pod, it could have been hot. Some of these here, like this one, you can see brush on the crop side of that burn mark. You can see some small brush there. Yeah, right where the cursor is. So sometimes some of our products like Garland XRT will color or burn the grass a bit if applied hot, but the grass will come back. If it doesn't come back, we'll reseed it.
Mr. Gender, did you have something to add?
Okay, on the one there, like there's a couple of, look at that picture there. It's not
From the landowner, because of the pole being there, there's no way they can spray around it. So like, I don't say that we have to take responsibility for something like that.
To me, it looks like it's kind of isolated. There could have been an error in the application, but it's nothing it's not our policy to spray that heavy to kill grass usually, but there's some spots that turned out that way, I guess.
That could have been a landowner also, because if you happen to hit your fence line sprayer nozzle, when you're flicking your switches, when you're not watching where your hands are, you can turn that on pretty easy and you shoot that far, so it could be. To say it isn't, there's that chance too, and you wouldn't have to hit the pole to do that.
And potentially, if they see a patch of bad weeds, to go out there with a handgun, so before it comes into your field, it's not impractical.
Mr. McKay?
What do we do in the case of landowners that continuously spray ditches out, like back slopes, side slopes, whatever else? What can we do or what should we do? Like,
There's a bylaw. There's a bylaw in place that they're not to farm our ditch, and I don't remember the cost, if it's 250 or is it 500 per quarter mile. But that doesn't follow me, that's protective services.
yeah, no, I just have
In the year, if you, for example, this year through canola, you totally make up the difference of a fine versus what you're gonna harvest out of our ditch, easily. Easily. Even wheat, you'd make money.
Yvette, then Justin.
Well, my only comment about,
we have lots of guys that farm our ditch, right? We would prefer they don't, but they do. So unless we're going to widen the road or have to dig a drainage ditch, if they farm it, they're controlling the weeds and they're usually cutting by swathing, or they're keeping it fairly neat. It's just like when we take a rod of land on a subdivision, right? We always tell the landowner, you're welcome to use that rod of land, but don't put anything permanent on it because the day will come when the county will come and take that. I mean, I just think you need to use a little bit of common sense because it cuts down on our labor. If somebody is actually, they don't need to farm it right to the end of the road, but if they're farming a little bit of the ditch and we don't have a requirement for it right now, is it hurting anything? And I guess that's something that council's got to wrestle with, because I know it's an issue, but if we're not using it and we don't have a need to widen that road or use the ditch for drainage, it's cutting down on our labor if we don't have to go out, continually spray it or mow it.
Justin, Quentin, and Larry.
Sorry.
No, I agree.
Couple questions. First one being, kind of indicated the fine versus how much they would get off this potential crawl plan. Before I would entertain raising fines, have we ever fined anyone? So that's my first point. Before, if we were gonna go down that road of increasing fines, I don't think it's worthwhile if we're not issuing any fines. So that's my first point. My second point to Yvette's comment is, how do we communicate to landowners where we need drainage and where they're safe? Like, I understand if they're farming this and we don't have to spray, we don't have to do weed control, I get that. But where's the communication? All right, this mile here is downstream from a lagoon, whatever the case may be. How do we communicate what is off limits and what isn't? There's gotta be a line somewhere.
I think that, we definitely, so we have graders out on these roads all the time. We have weed inspectors on these roads all the time, and we have people out doing inspections. Perhaps we make note that, we've noticed that someone is putting up to our road with a crop. And maybe it's time we started the communication with the landowner by saying, as long as you're aware that we are aware that you are farming our land, county has no need for that land at this point. But don't bank on it every year, because a year may come when we need it for drainage or we need to widen the road, right?
I agree, and especially if they would just stay well back from the shoulder and a little place of a drainage. I have no problem with them farming into the right of way, but I don't like them going right up to the edge of the road. They gotta stay back a little bit so they don't compromise the shoulders or the side of the road.
That's just to add to that, it's give an inch, take a mile. And I've seen them farming right down to the bottom of the ditch, and the next thing's gonna be is we're gonna start sloughing our road in. So it's where is almost what Justin had said, where is the limit? And what ditches can they do, what ditches can't they do? But you see even ones that there's no way they can farm right now because it's a straight bank spraying over, but they work closer and closer and closer. Pretty soon they're gonna start working that bank off of that too, so that is affecting our ditch. And there are areas where high water flow, like certain years, if you have that worked, we're gonna have major washouts and stuff if you have those big rains. So
You see that too in some of the ratepayer requests of fields flooding, and you go by and it's like, well, yeah, there's 3 feet of grass. There's no ditch to take the water. Of course, it's going out into the field. And you see Public Works out there having to deal with it. It's like, well, just leave the ditch alone.
Yeah, so you see this picture that's up right now, right? Common sense would say, what do we care if he farms that area? That keeps us from going out, having to spray and do weed control and mow. With the understanding, and I think most guys are aware that in their mind, they may think they're pulling a fast one on us, but they know we know where our land is. When the day is gonna come, if we need it, we're gonna take it.
Keeps the trees from growing under the
Power line, if they farm it.
That's what I would have guessed it be first. Yeah, it is.
Well, like these pictures here, straight up, we burnt some canola. My operator burnt some canola. Keep going through this.
or Quentin, it could have been a drill that wasn't, or an air seeder that wasn't working right at that point. You see lots of fields that have those patches in it.
That stake there, that's my right of way. So I burned 8 feet of canola, but I could have burned closer to 20 feet. And you're right, could have been that cedar was misfiring. I'll tell you straight up, it was us.
Yeah.
I have the records. There's a reason I have GPS on my trucks. So I can tell you what nozzle, what herbicide, what day, the wind temperature, the speed of the truck, wind speed, everything. I can tell you how much for a certain amount of feet of herbicide is actually applied to that land.
But just not how much herbicide was added to the water by the water.
Right.
We have some town halls scheduled for, coming up in 2023. Maybe this is one of the major topics that we talk to our residents about, right?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Get it out there. I mean, if we're not using it, you're welcome to crop it, but
You
if
got a town
you are,
hall?
we're gonna take it, right?
So like this picture here, you guys received a picture, was it last council? Of a guy standing in the field? This is just about the same spot. So on this one, I burned 2.3 meters of canola for half a quarter section.
My only other comment on the comments about the guy moved his fence back and then he's haying the ditch. Did he let us know he was haying the ditch? Did he come in and file a form? I guess maybe we've got to increase our advertising, but we'll leave it alone if they want to hay it. But they've got to live within the parameters of, like hay it and then don't leave your bales there until next spring. You got to get them off and they won't come in spring or
There's
mow.
another one up north of Stettler where he was mad that we sprayed the ditch.
Yeah.
He hays it every year. He sent an email in to someone who's not employed here. No form was filled out, therefore I don't know about it.
Yeah.
The mowers don't know
That's
about
our
it.
Problem, right? They got to let us know.
Mr. Clark?
But this is almost back to, a hold harmless. Because if we sprayed it this year, we sprayed it this year. It's our right of way. We sprayed it.
Yeah.
If we don't spray it next year and they seed it again, well, they got their crop next year. But I mean, they are on that right of way.
And
So-
to kind of explain it to my guys, because he gets me calling
Guys in the truck, running this for you, right? The best way to explain it to them is fence line to fence line, that's us. That's the best way to explain to them our right of way, because some roads are 33 foot, some are 66, and some are 99. My guys, my computer's pretty smart, but it's not that smart. It doesn't tell them how wide the right of way is. So when they see a fence line, they know that's where they can go to, because that's what I tell them.
Yeah.
And I tell them, the best way to explain it to them, to make sure they're getting weeds, I want nothing but grass from fence line to fence line. Policy says I'm taking out noxious weeds, and I'm taking out sweet clover where it's mixed in with noxious weeds, and I'm taking out brush. But I tell my guys, fence line to fence line, I want grass. That's a beautiful, clean ditch.
And I can see how they miscued a little bit where that fellow set his fence back, because it would look like maybe the county had had that as an easement, but
Maybe we bought a rod, right?
so that's a mistake I can see can happen. But typically we don't spray crops out typically.
Nope. June 2, that was sprayed.
Mr. Stevens?
Just a question for my information. You brought up, the people that applied to hay the ditches. Do we have any sort of tracking system where once this application has been received, we don't mow that road this year? That system in place? If they go through the process and get approved.
Process that we know. One of the problems I see with fence line to fence line is, especially in Bymore and Indiana, is that most of the farmers have stuck their fence lines way out into the ditch. And you can tell by the power poles, right? They're usually on the other side of the power pole. So what are we gonna do? Run around and survey where every fence line should be? I mean, that'll drive us crazy, right? So it's tough. Probably the easiest and most economical way to handle it is that ratepayers want to hay the ditches. We're good with that, but you gotta let us know.
I like the town hall suggestion, but I think it has to come with the caveat. Or haying, if you're seeding into our right of way, it's at your risk. Like this, if we have noxious weeds, we legally have to take them out. Like, you're welcome to do this, but you have to accept the risk if we're gonna go that route.
We've also got certain areas where we've had a lot of ratepayer concerns about some of the farmers in the area, how far they are farming the ditches. So I think we have to look at that too, because that's coming from our ratepayers. So it, like I said, it's give an inch, take them all sometimes too. If it was all grass to grass and somebody could hay it all, we wonder.
The biggest problem we've got is, areas where they're not pasturing any of these fields, right? It's all crop. And, each year you go 6 inches, you go 6 inches, right? But at least most farmers spray the crops out, right? So we're getting rid of the weed problem. But we're getting some other problems with it, right?
Farmers today, they spray like 4 times or something instead of the old ones, and so they are controlling weeds pretty well. So, I guess these items are for discussion. Is there any further discussion? Or do we just accept this for information? Mr. Jenner?
Is that we should not be looking at just go from fence line to fence line, because like even in this picture here, the poles are generally just on county property. So like we have definitely oversprayed there. And when you are going to be spraying, make sure it's going to be noxious weeds. Because like in the field that was by our place there, it was only alfalfa that was in there. So someone obviously does not know what noxious weeds are when they just go and spray something like that. And I'll just say, like, I guess there's an awful lot of discretion on there, using the common sense, okay, do you or don't you? Other than that, I'll just accept it for information.
We moved it for information, to be received for information, all in favor? Carried.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, I think that it's noted too that the county goes out and blanket sprays the ditches, right? So we kind of blanket spray. We're not doing it anymore? Okay, because we used to go out and spray, hoping to leave the grass, but hit everything else that was in there, right? And unfortunately, alfalfa doesn't take too much and it goes, but
Yeah. So now I think they're more adjusted to where's brush and weeds. Right? Okay,
We don't blanket spray. Straight up, you guys couldn't afford if I blanket sprayed.
Yeah.
Right now, the budget I was given this year, for a third of the county, I could spray about 10 feet of the ditch if I blanket sprayed. I might get a third of the county done, maybe.
we'll move on to 7.3 herbicide application from Mr. McKay.
Yeah, I do have pictures and I should have sent them in. I forgot to do so, but I was just wondering what chemical was used on 41. 41 in Range Road, 18.3, just north of our farm there.
Did we spray there this year?
We're not north of Highway 12, haven't been there in 2 years.
Because I do notice that down in the creek, and I think it's 17.5 or whatever, there was some spray done down there too. And I'm sure it was a county truck up there that sprayed it. It was a Tuesday or Wednesday, 2 weeks ago. Anyhow,
We're not north of Highway 12.
yeah,
I
and
I got a brush truck out. Maybe I got a brush truck up there spraying some brush.
well, that's what it was. It's mostly brush, but whatever they used, it killed the grass, it killed everything. There are pastures up there, and we do have cattle on both sides. The neighbor has pasture there that's rented out. The biggest concern is in that area, there was two horned owls that were nesting there, and they haven't been there since it's been sprayed. And I'm just concerned about what happened to those owls.
So the herbicides I use, watch how I say it. The herbicides I use, Corteva and Bayer will tell you, you can keep your cows on the pasture and spray right on their backs and it doesn't affect them. I don't do that. But the stuff we use today compared to years ago is so environmentally friendly. They go through a lot of testing. I can't say I didn't kill the great horned owls, but maybe they've moved somewhere else. I don't know.
The chemicals that you use today, they don't burn it off in a couple of days, do they? Like, I mean, it was within 2 days. It was just, yeah, like the tree leaves fell off, the buckbrush at the fence line, the weeds in the ditch, everything, yet. Like, I mean, brown, not even.
No,
It usually takes
A week, most of
Yeah.
the chemicals.
5 to 8 days to see.
This was almost instantaneous. And it didn't go the full length. They only went about 3/4 of a mile or a mile up the road and then came back. They didn't go the full mile or a mile and a half that it,
Continuous spray?
no, just spot sprayed. But, or brush on the trees on the fence line and some buckbrush, whatever in the ditches.
Can you
Send me the pictures and I can,
I've got them right here. I can send, or show you at dinner time or whatever.
So you'll follow up on Mr. McKay's?
Yeah.
No, I just was wondering if it was us and what chemical. I would have guessed it was Toradon that was used in that because the way it killed it is so quick that.
so my brush truck uses solely Garlon XRT. And it's a tank mix, so there's 3 jugs, there's 30 liters of herbicide and 400 gallons of water. I have to look the rate up, I believe it's 370 liters per hectare is what we spray at in that truck.
Okay.
And it's all handgun.
Yeah, and this looked like it probably was hand done. It wasn't a continuous spray. It looked like it was spot
There
spray.
was a brushing request in the last 3 years on that piece.
No, not by us or as far as I know the neighbors. So, in fact, I'm sure that it's been sprayed in the last 7 or 8 years. So,
Well, it seems weird because that guy is solely doing brushing requests. Like everything on Public Works list, that's all he's doing with that truck. It doesn't do anything else.
there was no request by us or as far as I know the neighbors either because it's cropland and pasture of his. That's there and it's all rented out. So.
I guess you two will follow up on
Yeah.
that one? Okay, no, that sounds good.
You need a motion for information or we're good?
I think we're good on that one. It's just.
Yep.
Follow up, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, 9.1 year-to-date financials. No, I,
So,
it's, actually, we're 9.2, the 2023 budget.
we can do that.
I have the financials.
Okay,
Just to report that everything is kind of ticking along. The only one that looks crazy is my rodent control line because I sold strychnine and I sold Rosal, so it looks like it's way over because I still sold however much January, February, March of strychnine. I'm not selling much Rosal. I sold 1 9-kilogram pail and 1 22-kilogram bag of Rosal. And then the county, we bought a 9-kilogram bag, pail and a 9-kilogram pail of ground force, which is a similar product to Rosal. That's what we're using in our bait stations. I think there was a picture in my report with some of the ball diamonds. We use some around the shop.
so is that a sort of a treatment on grain?
Yeah, so the grain, it looks like rolled grain that has a kind of a bluey green tinge to it.
So how does that work?
It's a multi-feed, so it's a lot like warfarin with mouse poison. They gotta come back 3 or 4 times before they get enough to kill them. So it's a continuous bait station. You gotta use what's called a tier 1 station. So basically a pail with some tubes on it that only gophers can come in and get it. Kids or dogs can't get in. Even though it's non-toxic to canine, they can't get to it.
So I was just wondering how it works. So it fattens them up until they die of a heart attack?
It fattens them up before they die.
Okay.
I mean, we're only just starting to use it, but there are some producers like Charlie Nemitz. He swore by it for years. He has an applicator. He buys very little strychnine from us, maybe 6 bottles every couple of years. He's been using straight Rosal. Says it works great.
Okay, hopefully.
As far as year-to-date budget, that's kind of the only thing that's flagged. My tools and equipment, I'm 113% spent, but I only had $1,000 in there and had to buy a couple more hammers, so it went over by a couple $100, nothing big.
Anything else on financials? Year to date, we're halfway through the years. Okay. So it's pretty much in line. So I guess just to accept that verbal report, Mr. Stevens, for information. Oh, a question first.
Earlier you, said you had to look into replacing your GPS. Is that included in your budget or is that?
So that's a budget item for 2023.
That's the case.
Mr. Jenner?
So the wormwood, it is still on the noxious list. I just had one ratepayer asking, okay, along with secondaries, like, they control it, or do we control it?
On a secondary highway,
Yeah.
that's the province.
Okay, if they don't control it, we will take care of it, send them the bill.
But I want to clarify that, remember our priority area weed control program, our POC patrol program? I'm only identifying certain townships to get control first, to get buy-in from the community. So I have not approached highways yet.
Just another question, okay, on page 40, you're just saying ASB provincial conference in Grand Prairie. I'm just kind of wondering, was there any date set for that one?
It's always the third week in January. I can tell you what days those will be. We haven't officially got a invitation yet with actual dates. They'll be coming soon. But it'll be January 16 to 20.
Just to give us kind of an idea of like what's
Yeah. They always pick the third week in June because they work around farm tech. And there's something else right before it that you guys do. On RMA, something else. Something waste maybe. There's two things that kind of straddle. So they always pick the third week in January.
So we're into 9.2 now, aren't we?
I had a comment on the one previously though. I was reading through it, like it looks like the attack to our wormwood or to absent is going to take off again next year. We have to have a game plan in place. Driving throughout the county, you go acreage after acreage after acreage, which is loaded with it. They don't have spray equipment. They don't have anything. So to spray it and to have that beside you, or to have our roads still, you got to tell me we're not hauling this in our gravel anymore, because that is my pet peeve. All that we have on our land came off that north-south gravel road. It's just spread all sides of the highway. So we have to ensure what we're doing go forward. We're not spreading this because it is a very expensive chemical. And if we leave these acreages, if we're going to do it, it has to be done right. And we have to have a solution, not just you're going to spray it because where the people have these horses and stuff, if it chews the grass chewed down in my country, it comes like wildfire. Yeah.
It likes to serve lands for sure.
So it's just, if we're gonna be aggressive, we're gonna have to be really aggressive if we're gonna get a handle on it, because you see where people sprayed the suggested spray, the weeds are just as bad as they were.
So do you want to scrap the POC program and go county-wide right away?
I don't know, but I think it's gotta be open a lot more for discussion if we're gonna make a stand on it, because you can go from Buffalo Lake down into Big Valley area, Les's area, my area, Paul's area, you can find it all over.
There's not a township that doesn't have it.
Okay, I'm going to step back and finish 9.1. Quentin give a verbal report on year-to-date financials. I just need someone to accept that for information. Mr. McKay? I will do so. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, now continue with more of the 9.2 discussion on budget.
I'll let you go some further about that last. I
Well,
was
that's-
looking at what was on my screen, so, okay.
Maybe one of the discussions we should have with council as we go through budget is, we've got to work with acreage owners to get the wormwood. And then we've also got to make sure that we're drowning our gravel pits, right? Like, they're better than they have been, but it's still there. And it's like a bad weed. It isn't. It won't go away.
We don't spray much for private land anymore. We're solely on our gravel pits, in our green spaces, in our parks.
like, you know,
Looking them.
a lot of, like I know even myself, right? You raise cattle, but you don't grow crops, so you have no sprayer equipment. So you've either got to go buy it, which I had to do, or you rent it, or you contract someone to come in and spray it. I was talking to a neighbor the other day and said, you know, do you get a contract guy out? You're waiting, what, months, 6 weeks? So if we want to get at it before the seeds start blowing away, you know, maybe we're going to have to look at that private land spraying again. Could be a major budget issue, but I think we have definitely got to keep that stuff controlled in our gravel pits because it's spreading it out there.
It would definitely be a major consideration for a second side-by-side then.
Yeah, and every time we open a
Landowner.
new pit or we go to a new area in a pit to start to crush, then we're definitely disturbing that and out it comes.
It's been here since the 1800s.
And what, you know, if we do that and it's said it's going to happen, because we're gonna have acreage owners that don't do it, if they have to book it, or they're gonna have trouble booking it and they're not gonna be around and it's not gonna happen. I don't know what we can do as council or what we can do as ASB to say it will be sprayed, because that's the only way you're gonna get control of it. The absolute only way, and that is one of our, to me, is one of the biggest players here, is, and as I said, my neighbors have bought Restore or Reclaim, and it looks, you drive around with this moisture we have, Quentin, and it looks no better than any. So their 5-year residual has not worked. So,
Mr. Stevens?
Is our policy for acreage owners not the same as farmers? Like if you do an inspection, there's noxious weeds, is that?
If there's no policy, a landowner's a landowner.
Yeah.
You're,
And I understand completely that there may be a lack of knowledge with some of our acreage owners. They're not ag experts, some of them. Some of them are just looking for a little more elbow room and don't want to live in town. So they may not have the same knowledge base that some of our farmers do. But I don't know that we let them shed any of their responsibility. I'm an acreage owner. If I have weeds on my land versus the farmers on either side of me, I'm no less responsible. And I think we need to help our acreage owners with inspections and enforcement and that education. Well, no, you have to take care of this. You have to be a responsible neighbor. But I don't know if we want to assist in shedding them of that responsibility. This is still yours.
And I don't think we should, you know, not wish we don't notice this to acreage owners. I think we should, and it's a way to get it controlled. But I think one of the most frustrating things for an acreage owner is if you don't have the knowledge that a farmer has, and they phone in, which this should be an Alberta government responsibility, not the county of Stettler, but we've been downloaded it. And they phone in and they ask for, well, what do I use? Well, you go buy that Restore or that. I mean, it's almost $1,000 for a case of spray. And even if you're using a quad sprayer, you're going to go through that pretty fast. And then the next year, it's right back. So what is the best product? Because, you know, acreage owners aren't going to want to do it every year, and they're not going to want to lay out that kind of money.
and can an acreage owner buy that product?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he can't go to buy a Roundup, so.
You need that PID number or something, right?
Mr. Ginger?
or an applicator's license.
That's exactly my concern. Okay, acreage owners, they're not farmers. They don't know how to mix it. They won't know what to use. So like, they could damn near put it into the sprayer, the hand sprayer, not even mix it down. They just don't know how they're gonna handle it. Hopefully that they'll be able to reach out and, okay, ask for assistance from whatever they can do.
Hire a private enterprise.
If you were to phone the one that's been recommended, they don't even want to come out. They're so busy. So that's what we're gonna get ourselves into if we don't come up with a solution. If it is that we have a secondary sprayer, we decided that that's the issue and we know we have to budget that, That would be, you could basically have a full crew doing that. And you still wouldn't get it all done.
If we decided that that was a priority, you'd probably have to go, I agree, with an additional private land sprayer. You'd have to have the two of them going nonstop and make them available. So if you want to get the problem solved, you gotta hit it, right?
That's something you would like Quentin to work into his 2023 budget?
Just a ballpark number, you'd be looking at, the one we did was in 2015, and that was 36,000 for the side-by-side and sprayer, plus a trailer and a truck. So it'd be another, it's a trailer, $20,000 now, and
Probably find a truck for
one
it.
truck, you know, so it's a significant cost to ag.
Plus one or two labor, like,
Well, another body for sure.
But then what's our cost if we continue to have to, fight this?
we're not gonna get ahead of it is what's gonna happen. If that's our goal and it's fairly, well listed here and it's going to be a prime goal, we're not gonna solve it if we don't offer a service to do it.
Keep in mind that side by side is not doing a full quarter section, right? We're doing like 5 acres, right? So there's a few options. Clearwater County, Wetaskiwin County, Panoka County have the field sprayer trailer, the 400-gallon trailer with the 80 horse tractor on a truck and trailer, and they'll come out and they'll do a quarter section for you at a cost. And then you can do the side by side route that's doing maybe the acreage guys, the little smaller stuff, right?
I guess that's a discussion that council's gonna have to, if this is your priority, what kind of funding are you willing to throw at it and how intense do you want it to be? But what we've been doing for the last 17 years since I've been here, obviously isn't working.
And I'm sure you can go to, I know one gravel pit for sure that if you drove into it, you can find it there. So,
Mr. Stevens?
If there's limited access with our private enterprises, which I'm getting the impression, there's a lot of nodding heads. I guess I'm not opposed to setting up another acreage type spraying unit. But if we're going to do that, I would like to look at our rates. And this is where I go back to my previous point about not relieving acreage owners of the responsibility. I'm not so sure we're trying to save our ag producers. And I'm not sure if our ag producers should be subsidizing the spraying so that their fields don't get contaminated. If we're gonna set up another one and we're spraying these acreage owners, I'm not so sure it should be at subsidized rates. So if we're gonna budget for this, I would like information on what this costs us versus what we're charging.
Right. And further to Justin's point, if it is a subsidized rate, we're gonna get all the business, but if it is slightly higher than private enterprise, it makes it more fair to private enterprise and it covers our costs better. Mr. Clark.
Two comments on that. Private enterprise has what they quote their oil field rates, and that's what the rate they charge. Okay, so we're putting that to our landowners, but if we're gonna start doing cost analysis and all this stuff, I'd like to know what it costs to have our mowers up at the lake every week. Because maybe those ratepayers should pay for that. Maybe it shouldn't be subsidized by farmers also, because that's weed control too. So it's one of those things that if we want to do it, it may be something we look at and we say it's gonna take us 2 to 3 years, 4 years to accomplish this. Then that sprayer and that equipment would have to go away. But if we don't, if we dabble, it's not gonna fix it. And that's a complaint I've had from a lot of the acreage. They said, I don't know what the hell to do with this. Like they don't have a clue, eh? And especially considering we put out recommendations 5 or 6 years ago, and that residual is not held up. So people put a lot of money out. Now that price of that spray is more than doubled, tripled just about. So, and as a vet said, it's $1,000 a case. Well, you don't want to waste any of it. And a lot of those people, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to have to do something with some that it would be a taxation issue. I don't know what we'll have to do if you want to get ahead of it. If we don't, if we want to dabble, I won't vote for this budget when it comes up.
Okay. I think the message is to put it into your 2023 budget, and I guess at budget deliberation times, we can decide on the extent of it, but the perimeters of the rules. Okay, was there anything else, okay, from this budget discussion that we want to look into further right now?
Yeah, so you
Have
have,
another major cost to it, that, as far as ag goes, overall budget, it's probably peanuts, but the, unit 277, which is my Dodge 5500 roadside spray truck, is up for renewal, for replacement. And I would build another truck like my Kenworth. It holds a little better than twice the water, not quite 3 times the water. They can go all day without coming back in. That Kenworth back in 2014, I think it was, cost me $130,000 to build. Buy the truck, put the spray system on it, put it on the road. That truck alone today is $165,000. Plus, I'm getting numbers as we speak, but give or take a $30,000 spray system. So that's up for replacement. The idea, the plan is to sell the truck as is, where it is, truck and sprayer, to a company like Combat Spraying or Corview Spraying that could use something like that. Some counties have a lot of success. Other counties don't. Our last truck, be it was close to 15, 18 years old, it got scrapped. I kept the truck as a fleet truck to pull my side-by-side, but the spray system was garbage. It was that old. So what I've worked into my 20-year capital purchase plan is every 10 years replace my spray system to keep it new, to get better value trying to sell it off.
So where are you at in your reserves? Because I know you put so much away every year.
That's a Krista question, but last time we had this discussion, I was over 200. But that would definitely be a Krista question. If she's in today, I could get a number for her over lunch.
So some of that money that we've been snatching away could be used towards it.
Pre-plan,
Yeah.
Mr. Clark.
Just a question on it is, people, because they need water, don't, like a farmer, you have a trailer that holds water. You could have a trailer that you pulled with that truck out to a staging area and went back to it to fill with water. Because just to buy a bigger sprayer so you got more water so you don't have to fill up sometimes is the most economical thing either. So something to look at on replacement of your other, if you were to replace that 5500, you know, I think we need to maybe see a cost comparison, or unless it's totally, that's the only way to go. But, you know, it is one of those things, and all the components on our spray system, what, you know, is it the whole thing, or is it, I see you welded to one tank? So it does show that things through just normal wear and tear do wear out, but I mean, is it more a pump issue? Is it more, you know, what, maybe some of the stuff could be updated. It's the cost of everything's gone through the roof. Is it gonna come down? Who knows? I doubt it, but.
I don't know.
As far as a water supply, I do, we do utilize like the Red Willow truck fill right at the shop. We got Scullard, Nevis, the Walker Well, Erskine, like there's water stations all over. But it's downtime, right? To fill it up, to fill the little truck, it's a 20-minute wait. But it's also, where were you? Get over there, fill up, come back. It does make it more efficient to have a bigger tank. But it's whatever the flavor is, really.
My sprayer takes about 3-4 minutes to fill with, if you got the water tank full and you kick that pump in. Yeah, so it's not a onerous thing, other than you'd have to set up a water trailer. So yeah, that could be an option too, so versus, you know, when you look at the price of what that Kenworth truck is.
We are getting more and more water fill stations throughout the county.
Regardless of size of the truck, I would still replace the pump systems. The entire spray system will be a replacement. To keep things new, to keep the there's always glitches, there's always bugs, right? It's essentially a rolling computer system. How much hair have you pulled out of my trucks, Jared?
Pardon?
How much hair have you pulled out of my trucks?
Oh, well, yeah.
Right, like,
That's just.
truck aside, I would still replace my spray systems in 2023. And I replace both at the same time, all the time, so that when Mr. Stevens is running one truck, Mr. Clark's running the other, for whatever reason, you're not here today and your truck's down, you can jump in and there's no retraining. It's the same thing. It's the same system. Keeps parts on my shelf easier because it's one system.
Anything else you'd like to bring out of this 2023 budget discussion? A lot of it's same year to year roughly.
A lot of my stuff is year to year, right? I don't, Ag Services doesn't do projects like Public Works. We're a maintenance budget, right?
Well, we've got some direction on a couple things. So is there any other discussion on 2023 at this time? I want to ask someone to receive it for information. Mr. McKay,
I'll receive it as for information.
all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving to 11.1, Brenda Knight's report on page 42. This is basically asking for support on the exemption of natural gas aimed for agricultural use, I believe. Haven't we got resolutions on that already? To the government?
This is past resolutions, right? That are still like active in the books. Remember, a resolution is active for, what did she say? Was it 5 years, 4 years?
So being that there's been no action on it, you just want to
These remind you it's still there.
and to keep it going, so.
The one letter that did come back though indicated that went all of that tax collected came back to that jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, or maybe lobbying the wrong people, maybe it should be back to the fact that we're Alberta government versus our federal government.
I mean, that,
It'd be like GS,
which they send out the carbon kind of a rebate too. But to me, I don't know if they say it's revenue neutral, it all goes back, but you know, the check that I got, I know I probably paid way more carbon tax than that. So there's somewhere in between, there's things aren't balancing. And I'm thinking these producers that are using natural gas to heat their grain dryers and their barns and shops and things to farm with, I doubt if they're recouping all that in their rebates, but
propane was even higher.
yeah, sure. So, do we want to find the correct place to send a letter to lobby? Or do we want to receive this information? I guess we've got the two options. I guess it's good to keep it informed. I think it'd be more efficient or if they did, for agricultural purposes, if they did exempt for grain dryers, barns and shops, rather than try to rebate, but so. It says contact your MLAs and MPs.
To go with the lunch kit full of requests every time.
I know.
But that would be an easy enough letter to put to both.
I think it wouldn't.
I think the response is
board, yeah. Because they definitely would know the right buttons to push if we raise this concern.
You want a motion for that?
Yes, I would.
I would ask administration to prepare letters to send to our MLA and our MP. I mean, in support of having this charge eliminated for farm use, basically.
There was two that she identified. One was the don't label the, or be
That one's been,
That one's been resolved.
Oh, it,
we've already won that.
And that was through our ag minister, I understand. It was a big
And our MLA is also the ag minister. That's, we're really fortunate.
push
We're
on.
hitting the right target there for, to pass this information along. Okay, Mr. Clark's made the motion to, draft a letter to the MP and the MLA. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Someone will pass that on to Nikki, I'm assuming, is she, or will you do that? Between you and Nikki, we'll leave it in your hands. Okay, 11.2, the Central ASB Chairpersons and Fieldman meeting on page 50. Was there any questions from that one? I see in my meeting notes, I did miss one point. The last few years, they've had difficulty with getting hosts for summer tours. And I guess it's not just with COVID, it's just people are just a little more reluctant to host the summer tours. And at the meeting, it was partially identified to the trying to keep up to the Joneses or something, because but one of the last ones they had, was there a big name star entertainer like Alan Jackson or something? I don't know if that was the one. Was there a big name entertainer?
The one that was in Sherwood Park had circus,
Yeah.
like,
Or something.
like where they did all the, it was a fantastic show, but I,
Part of the
Cirques of Away. Like,
Whatever it was,
it was really something to watch, but
I feel that that is partly the deterrent. I mean, how can you keep up to what the last one did when they get quite that extravagant? So they felt that was part of an issue, and the discussion went on the history of on these summer tours. Originally, they started out when they first began with just the fieldman and the chairman of the ASB boards attending, and they were wondering if someone had suggested that might be a route to get them started again, but I'm not so sure the boards would agree with that. But
A lot of it is staff, right, and work. So you want to do a summer field tour. When's our busiest time of year for ag services? Summer, right? So,
You would essentially hire a second crew.
To be cleaning up, getting ready, preparing, event hosting.
I know it's
Well, you're doing
huge.
what you're supposed to.
Yeah, I know, it is huge. I can see not too many municipalities probably have the staff to.
And they say generally you lose about $100,000 to $150,000.
It's too bad you couldn't do them as a zone, right? Like maybe if you all got together and maybe had different sites to look at, one in Lacombe County, one in Stellar.
Smaller scale.
Yeah, so you do it in a zone area, right?
You're driving lots then, but maybe
well, we could pick a corner because we have in a 5 mile radius, we have us, Paint Earth and Starland.
where are you gonna sleep?
Yeah, or go north, maybe you've got
Where do you host a meal that big?
Lacombe, Pinoco. Yeah. It would then differ the cost between 4 municipalities instead of just one.
Yeah, this is all good discussion points, and Brenda chairs this meeting, and there hasn't been a meeting for quite some time, and they're trying to hold, maybe 2 or 3 of these a year, just to get, back in the loop here, because a lot of these discussions need to be had.
Was Grand Prairie our last summer tour?
no, Sherwood Park would have, or, yeah,
Strathcona County?
Strathcona County would have been the last one, I believe.
I've never,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I've never attended one of these, so I'm not sure what all takes place, but what I'm hearing, it strikes me like, kind of like putting in a bid to host the Olympics. We can stick our hands up, thumbs up and say, yay, we hosted at this ridiculous price tag.
Well, the last one that did it though, they showed us their bad roads and they were oiled. I think they had 18 kilometers of what they call dirt roads, which were high grade gravel. Councilor Gander, wasn't that the number?
No,
Yeah, Strathcona County doesn't really have any ground at this point.
No, we just, because somebody said on our tour, and it was a great tour. It was the banquet and the stuff that really went extreme. They hosted, like from a host basis, I guess they did treat us all very well, but on the same sense, if Grand Prairie's and stuff like that, the next one was supposed to be at Drayton Valley, I think. Was before, when COVID was coming on, was supposed to be that tour over.
Originally, they were set up that municipalities would come to your county and see your programs. Go check out what your spray trucks are doing. You have a POC program running. How your weed inspectors are doing. What is running your ag department? That's what you're looking at. Now, we're looking at, like Strathcona County, we looked at the fire hall and the RCMP station. We went and looked at that.
We looked at bee production.
That horse,
Big vet.
that big horse place that was doing breeding, the vet clinic. You're looking at more ag business type things.
We went to a call and looked at all their bio stuff that they had there. Like I said, it was a really good meet. It was a good meeting.
Bonnyville, we went and we looked at the lake development. Like it went a little more business, a little more what's economically driving your county instead of staying focused on the ag programs were originally designed. But that was the flavor, right? That's just kind of where it went. A lot like the entertainment.
Gotten bigger and bigger. And it might be all right to step it back a little bit and not be quite so extravagant and do it jointly with things. But so, and was there anything else from that meeting, the notes that I forwarded that anybody wanted to discuss? But, well, Mr. Clerk?
I thought they were very good. The notes, I found would be very good.
Yeah, it was a good meeting for sure. Yeah. Mr. Gender.
It was great to be able to see that some of them are denying, like to kind of sterilize some land with panels,
Okay, yeah.
with productive land.
Yeah, they are being quite active in keeping the farmlands. Because in one place there was it was a solar panel farm and they wanted access to what do you call it? Substation, yeah. And anyways, depending which side they went, I think they could have went in really good agricultural land, but being almost equally as close on the other side, it changed, I don't know, the terrain changed. It was, not very good for hills or whatever. And so they really were trying to encourage them to get into the stuff that wasn't as good. So they worked with the solar farm on that one.
Reeve Clark is right. Very good notes, and there's some lessons learned here. Like, if we get approached for another solar farm in our county, this weed control there is going to have to be a condition. We can learn lessons
Yeah.
from some.
And that's the good part of these meetings is because you learn what other counties are dealing with, and then you can maybe head it off before you have that same issue. So have a plan for recycling them in place and weed control in place on those. Yeah. And the resolutions were all reviewed, where how they progressed. So.
So like the farm buildings over 6,000 square feet, like how is that going to affect, say, like some of these larger producers?
Well, I don't know, is the national building code much different than the provincial building code?
I don't know any of the
Yeah.
building codes, so I
There's bound to be the odd difference, and there may be some conditions that they will have to follow that they wouldn't have otherwise once the building gets that large, but it's something that's new.
Like you look at them barns, like takes nothing to go over 6,000 feet.
So, okay, I think Mr. Stevens was going to make motion.
There's no other questions. I'd make a motion to receive for information.
All those in favor? That one's carried. Okay, our next meeting is August 24th. Seminars, workshops, conferences. November 2nd is the Central Region ASB Conference in Macomb.
Wednesday.
Pardon me?
That's a Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
So that's,
That'll be this, no, that won't be council.
no, our council should be the
That's
next.
First Wednesday of the month.
So that'll be added to our calendars. There's nothing in camera. Thanks, so we just need a motion for adjournment. Mr. Clark,
That motion.
all in favor?